Welcome back to No Sleep Teal on the Reier on YouTube channel. Travis Reier alongside Evan Reier. And Evan, we are here. Week one of the 2024 National Football League season. The Jacksonville Jaguars set to make the short trip down south, take on those Miami Dolphins, led by Mike McDaniel to Atanga Vailoa. Wow, we'll get into some of the matchups. The one big thing that we're anticipating for this game, we'll get into a little bit later in the program as well. We'll also go through some concern or keep it moving as we get you ready for Jags Fins down in South Florida. But with that, Evan, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the injury situation. Sounds like we talked about this a little bit before the show. I mean, obviously, other than the Andrew Wingard for the most part, Daniel Thomas on that injury report here on a Wednesday. Looks like that Achilles is still a little bit of a question mark for the reserve safety and special teamer. But otherwise, Jags look like they're in pretty good shape.
No, I mean it's best case scenario, really. There's as a Jaguars fan, I mean we've seen a lot of years where whether it's our first round pick, tearing his ACL in the first practice, or something like that. This offseason has had none of that. It's been beautiful in a sense. But yeah, no, it's solid. Of course. You'd love to have Thomas just for pure depth options and what he provides special teams wise as well. But I mean, really, you're going to take that from there. I mean, everybody else is either guys that we've known we're going to play in this game for weeks. And so if that's as long as nothing crazy happens these next couple of days, I would say the injury report is a positive one.
Yeah, the injury report a lot better to start this season than it was to end last season.
Yeah,
when you think about it from that perspective, no doubt about it. Hope springs eternal from
Yeah.
that perspective. But when you think about the Dolphins, intrigue there because question marks, guys who haven't maybe fully participated in some recent practices for the Dolphins, guys like Jalen Waddle, guys like Tyreek Hill, guys like Jalen Ramsey. I don't know about your thoughts on this going into week one, maybe some gamesmanship. I know there are regulations and boundaries that you're kind of held to by the league office when it comes to being transparent about injuries. But I'm of the belief anyway, if I don't see, it's going to take me not seeing those guys on the field Sunday to believe that they're limited in any way or perhaps out altogether.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, but at the same time, I mean, we're talking about when I'm looking at the Dolphins depth chart just now, six different guys that are starting that are listed starters that are questionable. Now, again, like you said, I got to see it to believe it. But simultaneously, I'm thinking, okay, well, there's probably a decent chance that one or two of these guys are, not making it. It's also worth mentioning that they've got, a few guys that are depth guys that aren't, technically starters that are already rolled out. Odell Beckham, he's not making it. Bradley Chubb's not making it. So, they're not at full strength. It may not be 60% not full strength, it might be 90%, but still, I mean, whether these guys go or not, if they're managing an injury, it's something to monitor at the very least.
Yeah, OBJ, if you're the Dolphins, you still got plenty of firepower, assuming those other guys are capable of giving you pretty much every rep that you need from them.
Right.
But, you get into a situation like Bradley Chubb on the defensive side, that's something that can be beneficial to the Jaguars, no doubt. And you've got some guys on the defensive side too coming off some injuries for the Dolphins that, kind of like Arik Armstead in some ways for the Jags. We're going to find out exactly where he's at in this season
Yeah.
opener, and we'll talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. But let's get into some concern or keep it moving topics for you, Ev, as we look ahead to Sunday's game. It was a comment that was made a while back, really at the start of training camp by Shahid Kahn in relation to this being the best Jaguar team in the history of the franchise going into a season. I understand late 90s. You think about 99, you think about some of those Jaguar teams, you kind of go, ooh. And then some of it is you do it in retrospect, right? Like the 2017 team. It's easy to
Right.
sit here now and go, oh, well, 2017. Well, that team going into that season,
Yeah.
people that weren't penciling them in as an AFC championship game type of squad. Is that a concern, you think? Is that additional pressure maybe for this team, what Shahid Kahn said? Or do you think it's more of a keep it moving situation?
I think I think there is something to it. Shad Khan in, the past, he doesn't say a ton of really I don't bold or kind of really, he doesn't make a lot of predictions. He doesn't, do or even a lot of ultimatums, you know what I mean? He doesn't put a lot of, well, we have to do this or this is a failure, kind of stuff. So I actually kind of like this, and I do think that there is a little bit of pressure. um I think he's making it very clear. It's like we think we've done it. We think we've built a team that is supposed to be competitive at the very least, maybe even, AFC championship game caliber kind of team. And just making it clear to Doug, to Trent, I think that when he says stuff like that, I don't think there should be as much pressure on the players. I don't think they're probably like, yeah, we are a really good team. I think what the message really is for Doug and for Trent to say, hey, y'all, like, if it's not going to really happen this year, we're going to start, you know, wondering if it's going to happen at all. And, I've said earlier in the offseason that I do think that there's a world in which they clean house if, this is not if this is like a 6-win season. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. So I do think there's something to it.
I think it's Khan's way of saying I've done everything I know to do at this
Yeah.
point. Look at the money the Jaguars came off of in this offseason. Not just talking about the obvious, the draft picks that you got to sign, the work that the Jags did in free agency, but perhaps more so than I can recall in a long time, holding down the guys that you think are the guys, your quarterback, your edge rusher, your corner, really nailing down guys for the long term when you talk about Tyson Campbell and Josh Hines Allen, and of course Trevor as well. So yeah, I think it is what it is from that perspective. I think it's pretty much a keep it moving. I think you're also right. It's reaffirming to your front office and your head coach. All right, let's see what we've got here. As far as this team being the best Jaguar team going into a season, I mean, 99 was Super Bowl or bust. I mean, there's been teams that
Yeah.
have been like that. Not many, but that one for sure, as I recall, was more that situation. So it's been interesting to see this sort of brought back up here right as we get into the season opener. Hey, let me ask you this. We also had a depth chart release for this matchup with the Miami Dolphins. And I think something that stood out to a lot of folks was the differentiation between Chad Muma and Devin Lloyd on the depth chart. And I know that Doug was asked about this earlier today, and he kind of brushed it off as just being situational. I really felt like as the early stages of training camp advanced, Devin Lloyd was looking more and more like a real dude. And maybe this
Right.
has to do with Chad Muma doing the same thing. Perhaps that's the case. Again, though, I think some folks found that interesting. How did that strike you? As a concern or as maybe something that you just keep moving?
I think you keep it moving. I think I do think that, yeah, this we don't have all the information, right? Like once we get to 3:05 p.m. on Sunday and we've seen that first game, probably tell us a lot. And even then still could be situational like Doug mentioned, but I'm not overly surprised by this because if you've been paying attention to, pretty much every time Ryan Nielsen, kind of speaks, he seems to bring up Chad Muba. This guy really seems to like what Muma brings because when we've talked about in the past of like, we're like, well, yeah, Devin Lloyd makes the most sense as a edge rushing option. Nielsen has mentioned Muma like multiple times at this point. So I think it's a situation where, you know, it could be just, Muma is genuinely showing stuff to Nielsen, to Doug to say, hey, no, I got to get on the field. I'm ready. after 2 years of development, I'm finally here. I could also see a situation where they're kind of looking at it like, you know, Muma hasn't gotten nearly the amount of reps that Lloyd has. He has had a good off season. We like, maybe what he's understanding about what we're trying to do defensively, maybe more so than Lloyd, because Lloyd has had issues in the past learning the defense. I mean, that did happen his rookie season. Um, I could see them saying, all right, well, this is Muma's opportunity. This is his chance to prove that he should lock down the position. And if it doesn't happen, back to kind of Lloyd kind of running that show. It is interesting, but I think it's one of those two where, TBD, we have to see what they're actually going to do. And even after 1 week, that may not be enough. If Doug's not not just blowing smoke, and it really is a situational thing, then the Jags might kind of have a platoon linebacker situation here where, depending on what kind of offense they're playing against, the personnel they're looking at, they're going to go to Muma or Lloyd accordingly.
Well, it could be Muma and Lloyd too, right?
Yeah.
Because Aluakan has had some health issues during the preseason.
Yeah.
So I think there's been a lot of cross training, especially with those three guys, not just at the inside spots, Mike and Will, but even some on the outside in a situational role. So I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I thought Devin Lloyd, as you referred to a moment ago, in terms of conceptually and schematically some of the struggles he had, especially a couple of years ago as a rookie, I thought those had started to sort of relieve themselves because he
Dissipate.
was
Yeah.
he was making some plays in camp that you don't make if you don't know where to be and when to be there. So I took those as real positives, and that's what I'm going to go with this situation now. That perhaps Muma is a beneficiary of change too, right? You go from
Yeah.
one scheme to another scheme, one coordinator to another. We see it at different levels and with different teams. Perhaps that's the case here with Chad Muma as well. Wanted to ask you too, sticking with the defense, about Arik Armstead, the veteran defensive lineman. Of course, the acquisition by the Jaguars, big ticket item in free agency coming in from San Francisco. Armstead coming off that knee procedure in the offseason, didn't see him in training camp, really didn't see much of him, if any, in the preseason or the lead up to this game. Now, he's been cleared for a while, so he's been participating
Right.
in practices. But is there concern for you in terms of Sunday being his first real action since last season? Or do you look at this as, look, this guy, decade in the league, he's going to be fine with not being a part of that, and he'll jump right in there and play a significant role without much of a pitch count against the Dolphins?
I'm not worried about him in terms of snaps against the Dolphins. What I am a little, just I would maybe say to Jaguars fans to, if he doesn't have a sack and a forced fumble against the Dolphins, don't worry. You know what I mean? Like, definitely, even when you're a veteran, when you're making a big switch, when you're, moving cross country, you're recovering from a procedure, all that stuff. I know he's cleared. I know he's good. He's a professional, and he's going to get out there and at least do a solid job, because that's what Arik Armstead has always pretty much done. That being said, I could see that it taking a game or two for him to really rev up, to get to maybe, full strength, to be sharp, to be at match sharpness. So that's the only thing I'm really thinking about. I mean, I'm still extremely excited to watch him, and I wouldn't be surprised if, early on, he kind of sets the tone maybe a little bit. If you can get a Paul on Raheem Mostert as he's trying to hit the outside, tackle for loss kind of thing. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because on one hand, you think, well, they kept eight big guys on that
Yeah.
defensive line, so they have depth. They don't necessarily have to depend on Arik Armstead early in the season. On the other side, they only kept three edge guys, and one of
Yeah.
those is Miles Cole, right? So
Yeah.
once you get past Trayvon Walker and Hines Allen, if you're telling me that Armstead is also an edge option, which we have heard, which
Yeah.
I think that's very much going to be situational. I'm not buying that entirely either.
Yeah.
Not based on what we've seen from him throughout his career, and there's ample sample size of that. But still, you still might need reps from him in situations at the end position as well. So I think it's a keep it moving. Again, this is a veteran. You don't want to put more miles on those tires. The last couple of years, he's battled injuries. So, why take that chance at this point in his career? So, look,
First down, real quick. First down, pass rush package. We got to give JHA and Walker a break. So
yeah,
Eric
that's my
Arm-
thing with the edge thing. Yeah,
Eric Armstead on the strong end and Chad Muma on the weekend.
right.
That's
So
that's your first.
3rd and 9, Trayvon, come off. We're gonna
Yeah, for
we're gonna bring
we're
another
gonna put
inside
Eric
guy
out
and
there.
put.
Yeah,
But here's the thing I could see with that, where you could try to do some different things that could make protections a little tougher because this offense comes up the line of scrimmage and maybe Trayvon Walker's inside and Eric Armstead's outside.
yeah,
And
and
then
you
some
kind
of
of
the stuff
stunt or whatever. Yeah.
work twist or bring some zone pressure with that look. And I guess that's kind of where my head's at on some
Hey,
of that
well,
stuff.
I'm down to get weird with that stuff. I love creative pass rushing packages and all that stuff. But yeah, it is kind of like with when we said see it to believe it on Dolphins players not playing. I kind of need to see the production to believe in its capabilities of having kind of some of those other guys in the mix. But yeah,
Could call that their Asheville, North Carolina pass rush. Stay weird. Stay
yeah,
weird,
stay
Asheville.
weird. Yeah,
You know?
absolutely hipster pass rush.
No doubt about it. Hey, so Evan, as we look ahead to Sunday, wanted to get your thoughts. The one big thing for you in this matchup, we've talked about the injury situation. We understand that explosiveness from this Miami offense at pretty much every position, every skill spot with Tua Tagovailoa pulling the trigger is a real concern, especially for a Jaguars secondary that, as we know, is entirely revamped. Um, so where does it sit for you in this game? The one big thing for you in this matchup?
You know, you think defense when you're thinking about this specific matchup because that offense is legit. It's insane. I'm actually gonna say I'm gonna focus on the offense. I'm gonna focus on the fact that one you're gonna need to probably score what? What are you gonna need to score in this game to win? 28,
The,
31?
the total is 49, which when I saw that, I went, man, give me bang the over. But
Yeah, I also was gonna say,
that's still a 28-21 game. I mean, that's
yeah, it's a lot of
still
points. It's a lot of points.
something in that neighborhood.
But you like to think that somebody gets to 27 or more in this game, probably. So my point with that is just offense, opening drive points. That's a big thing for me. I think if they can go into that game and then right away get started, no weirdness, no whatever. Now it's not going to be the end of the world if they go 3 and out in the opening drive, like whatever. But I think this is the type of game where the offense needs to show up immediately, and there needs to be no worries because if you get into, I think there's a world in which you could maybe come back against this Dolphins team. I don't think you want to be doing that. I think you want to be at least in a straight up foot race. So I'm going to highlight, a really strong start for the offense. Whether they do that on the ground or through the air, I think they could have a lot more success on the ground. I don't have a lot of faith in that Dolphins front seven, but yeah, that's kind of my big thing is an early, quick start for the offense.
So you're like me. You're anticipating the Shat storm coming in
Yeah,
that first quarter.
yeah,
Really just try to weather that, get through the first 15 minutes and kind of a tie game, even if you're down a field goal, even if you're down a touchdown. And one thing
yeah.
you don't want to be coming out of the first quarter of this game is in
Well,
a 10-0 hole or more, and then you're playing uphill on the road. Um, and again, you're still not entirely sure about what you're going to be able to do in terms of getting enough
right.
stops from that point forward to get you back in the game and perhaps win it.
Well, I mean, I think too, it's just like you know, you think about Mike McDaniel and you think about this, mad scientist kind of, Kyle Shanahan, just how much kind of offensive creativity that guy will probably implement or has thought up or not, been able to use over the past 6 months in this game. I mean, I like to just thinking about it. I think they're going to, probably pull out some stuff. They're not going to show their whole hand. It's the first game of the season, but they're going to be ready. So, I'm going to have more.
Dolphins need this game too. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely. This is not, I mean, they do not have a lot of leeway. I mean, this is, also a game that, if you're a playoff team, you're looking at another team that, is probably a playoff team or at least in the mix. So I'm going to give more leeway to the defense in this game. And, I just think that, yeah, I think if you don't have, I don't know. I think if you're down by, two scores going into half, it's probably going to be pretty tough to turn that back around. I mean, granted, the Dolphins aren't exactly known as a super strong home team. Miami's not known as a crazy place to play. It's not going to be like that, but still, I mean, that offense, they've got a chip on their shoulder too. I mean, just like the Jags do. The Jags had a terrible end of the last year. The Dolphins went into that opening playoff game last year and nobody gave them a chance and they got their ass kicked. So, I mean, they got something to prove too.
what about complementary players for these offenses? Because you think of like big threes, right? You think
Right.
Tua, you think Tariq, you think Waddle. When I think
Yeah.
big three for Miami, but there's other guys. The running back position for the
For,
Dolphins.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
the Jags kind of that way with Trevor, and Evan's going to be very involved.
Absolutely.
And whether you pick a third guy from Christian Kirk or Travis Etienne, you've got your three that you can look at for the Jags as well. So then it gets into more of the complementary guys in the production that these offenses are maybe able to get out of Brian Thomas Jr. Does that carry over into the season opener? Some of the great stuff we've seen from the rookie from LSU for the Jaguars. I'll say this too, something I think could be a real difference maker in this game is that one of these quarterbacks is mobile and one of these quarterbacks is not really all that
Yeah.
mobile. And I think we know where we're going with that. Trevor's feet, Trevor's ability to do it in the design game, whether it's throwing it, moving the launch point, or him running with the football, take care of the football. That's a big one in this one, too. But Tua's had some issues with that himself. So
Absolutely.
I think the mobility at the quarterback position could ultimately be maybe a divider of these offenses to go along with the complementary personnel.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the other thing I really considered was if I was going to focus on the defense for that one big thing was just how quickly can we kind of get to Tua. It's me, we don't need to anybody that knows me and you knows that we love Tua. I mean, watching him in college was fantastic and he's a good dude and all this different stuff. But the reality is that if you can get to that guy early, he gets rattled. It's a lot of quarterbacks do. It's not super unique to him. But if you can, if you hit him hard early, it could get one. I mean, I don't though I would literally be so sad if he got injured. I would be very, very upset if that happened. But that is a thing you have to consider. And then two, yeah, if you can just kind of rattle, kind of get him unstable, not feeling like he can really just chill in the pocket, wait for the play to develop and find his man, then, it's going to get dicey. Whereas Trevor, I feel like, especially what we've seen, this offseason, this preseason, he looks better than ever on the move. And that is a huge deal. Again, I don't think this Dolphins, pass rush and defensive line is especially great. So I'm not thinking we need to be moving Trevor quite as much, maybe as we will need to against, like, say, the Browns. But simultaneously, I mean, it never hurts when he can, get mobile. He gives himself a little extra time, and is able to get those angles that typically you can't find.
E-
So yeah,
Especially when you're trying to close out games, maybe on third down or extend games
yeah.
in the fourth quarter, to have that variable in your offense can be very important. And your point about the front seven for the Dolphins is a great one. Christian Wilkins no longer around in Miami. Chubb's out. Jalen Phillips, I believe, coming
I mean,
off an
Calais
injury.
Campbell is starting, and we love Calais,
Love
we do,
Calais.
but he's 55 years old, and that's not fair. He's 38, but still,
I'd
I
take him
mean,
right now. I'd take
oh,
him
I
at
mean, I would
38.
literally just for vibes. That is something I will say is that no matter what happens, I do feel like between Calais and Jalen Ramsey, one of them's got to make a play against us. You know what I mean? Calais is either gonna get a sack or Jalen's gonna either swat a touchdown or God forbid get an interception. It just feels like destiny. Those two dudes from 2017 coming back around to haunt us a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the tackles for Miami against Trayvon and Josh, I mean, that's going to be a huge matchup there in terms
yeah,
of trying to keep Tua comfortable, because I think you said it as well. The earlier you can sort of disrupt Tua and let him know that this is going to be a 60-minute thing, the better it's going to be for that back end. And speaking of which, we saw the depth chart from the Jaguars. Of course, the Jags released a depth chart that wasn't a nickel depth
yeah,
chart. So
yeah.
Darnell Savage is at safety, which we fully anticipate they're going to open in nickel, and he's going to be at the slot corner. Go ahead.
Sorry, continue. I just had a thought, but if you want to finish, I
Antonio
did.
Johnson, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
is going to be at safety to go along with Cisco. Darby at a corner, Tyson at a corner. I mean, I know the depth chart was what it was, but it didn't give you the nickel look from it.
Something I will say too that I just thought about when the Jags fell off a cliff last at the end of last season, something we were seeing a lot towards the end of we were seeing it throughout the season, but it seemed to just get worse, was the amount of just sloppy tackling and missed tackles and stuff from guys that are no longer here, but also guys that are still here. That is, if there's a single team we play all year that you have to tackle, sure, like very assuredly against, this is that damn team. I mean, Chad Muma, Devin Lloyd, Darnell Savage, Antonio Johnson, all these guys that are going to be really up in the mix. Andre Cisco. When A Chain gets to the second level,
A chain.
it sucks that he
Yeah.
picked up 7 yards, but he can't, like, if you miss, it's over. Like
And I don't see this happening because NFL, you just don't see it a lot. But that this isn't really Foyer's kind of game, you
yeah,
know, at the
yeah,
linebacker position. So maybe there is a world where Muma and Lloyd are out there together. I don't know,
yeah,
because you just said it. Those backs and a chain is certainly very, very capable of this.
yeah.
Can
I mean, it's
really hurt you in space,
yeah.
devastate you in space. Yeah.
It's scary to think about. I mean, it really is. Like, and that's the I mean, that's the thing that they've got. Their whole offense is really based around these guys that don't it's what they're doing after that kind of first initial move. They can keep it going. Everybody from Mostert to Waddle to even Braxton Berrios is pretty slippery.
Mhm.
So no, it's going to be an awesome matchup. I'm very excited. I mean, this is as interesting as an opening game as I really think you can have, because there is AFC implications. It's a team that you might see in the playoffs, and it's a road game too. That's only adding to it. But uh,
Trevor's kind of owned to it too. I mean, you go
yeah, it's
back that
true. Historically speaking, yeah,
Clemson, Alabama, in that 2019 college football playoff national championship game that your mother and myself witnessed firsthand way out there in Santa Clara. And then I guess even in London a couple of years ago, these
yeah,
teams met, and Trevor gets the win in that one. So Trevor
and
trying to keep that thing going against Tua.
we'll see. I think this could be a huge moment for both of these quarterbacks. If either of
Well,
them,
the loser of it's there's gonna be a lot of noise.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
there is a scenario where both these guys play lights out, and perhaps that proves to be the case, I'm probably more in line with that thought than I am.
Right.
One of
Yeah,
them's
I
going to
could see
stink it
both of
up.
them going for 300, 2 touchdowns.
I could
if each.
see the
Yeah,
the team that loses this loses it on defense more
right.
so than
Where it's just
than
like,
offense.
sorry, we gave up 38 points. It's like,
Yeah.
oh shit. I mean, but no, I mean, it's this is a big moment for both quarterbacks. I think Tua definitely has a chip on his shoulder right now. I think Trevor also seems to understand a little bit. It's not just a, well, I'm paid, I'm happy to be here. There's a little bit of a prove it aspect to the way he's been talking to the media and stuff. So and the way he's been playing, I mean, I know it's preseason against the Falcons backups or whatever, but still, I mean, I think he's taking it very seriously. So yeah, it's a big moment for both those dudes, and I think it'll probably be the game to watch of the 12 p.m. slate, to be honest.
Speaking of which, as we get out of here, I wanted to ask you about this. You talk about the quarterbacks, and I agree. It seems like Tua and Trevor have been tethered almost together going back to
Yeah,
college. But this play calling gate, I guess we'll call it,
yeah. Oh yeah, we did get to talk about it.
with Press and Doug. I wanted to talk about this earlier. But as we get out of here, let's hit on it. Kind of reverting back to concern or keep it moving for you. Where does that sort of fall at this point? It almost seems like Doug is having some fun with it. And I don't know in terms of gamesmanship how much value you really would get out of it, but perhaps that's the thought process. It's just interesting, again, considering the comments of the owner
Yeah,
earlier in the offseason about his particular preference. And Doug in these public settings, and again today, still non-committal, at least publicly, on how that's going to work.
yeah. It almost, it's really tough to parse. There's a part of me that almost thinks that he's like, it's like, a parent afraid to tell their child that Santa's not real. Like they don't want to give up the ghost.
Protective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't. So he's like, well, maybe if we can just like, we'll walk into Hard Rock Stadium and then at the very last second be like, hey, Press, sorry, I gotta call the place today, buddy. I don't know if that's what, I don't. Obviously, that's not what's happening. They've known for months. There's no way that they don't know.
They
Like
the
it's
two people that need to know.
yeah, and it's and the players not like it's all BS. Like whatever this is. Um, do I think it really matters? I don't even know at this point. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, of course, sure. I think Doug, would be the preferred guy, especially after, a season in which Press Taylor called plays last year and didn't seem to go especially well. But I'm so kind of tired of trying to figure out if it matters and all that different stuff that I hope that Sunday, we probably won't even know until the press conference after. I mean, there probably won't be, it won't be until after the game that he's like, no, I called the plays or whatever.
Well, during the game, they're going to be cutting down to the sideline, and they're both going to be on the sideline. So
And they're
you
both going
should
to
have
be,
an
they're
eye.
both going to be blocking their mouths simultaneously.
Here's when it won't matter. It won't matter the first 15 or 20 plays or so because all that's going to be scripted.
Scripted, yeah.
When it's going to matter, if it matters, is when the script runs out. That's when you need to have that guy that can really get it done.
Well, and I
opinion.
wonder maybe if that's something where they could be doing something like that. That's not unheard of for kind of your OC to basically handle the script, and then the HC can kind of get a little bit more control over play calling after that. But
I think it's going to probably be the same as it's been the last couple of years,
which is Press
collaborative.
Yeah,
There's going to be conversation between Doug and Press, and then a play call is going to be made, whether it's Press that's on the green dot or whether it's Doug that's on the green dot. I don't think it's really going to be all that different, in terms of how it ultimately gets called. Maybe the delivery is different, but that's
third option. Trevor's going full Peyton Manning. Basically no OC.
Omaha.
Omaha.
Yeah. If we hear an Omaha, we'll know what's really happening.
Trevor just run like boots the opposite way, back and forth.
Trevor
back and forth.
cook.
Yeah, let him do it. I believe in him.
What are you paying this guy for? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I mean, if you thought Press Taylor was worth $50 million, you would have given him $50 million.
Right.
Now you gave Trevor 50. So let's see him do it.
He needs to take some ownership here. All right. Well, hey, it's a lot of fun as always.
Yeah.
Look forward to Sunday. You got the Jags, by the way?
I got the over.
Oh,
I got the over.
well,
I got the
which
over.
that's a
Um,
no. I'll take that as a no.
that's been mailed in. The money's been mailed in on that one.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
um uh
Self-addressed stamped envelope for that
yeah,
return
absolutely.
winning. Sure.
No, I think if I had to throw out a score prediction, I'm gonna go 27-23 Jags.
Ooh,
I
Cam
think they get
Little.
enough. I think the defense can get enough done in red zone situations. I think they're able to, mostly limit the big plays. I think there's going to be probably one big Waddle touchdown or one big Tyreek Hill touchdown.
Yeah.
But I think the offense is able to keep pace and maybe, like I said, have that hot start and then kind of force the Dolphins to keep up rather than the other way around.
It's a
So
lot of Cam Little I sense in that game.
yeah,
Twenty-seven,
oh yeah,
23, and you really love the over. You're thinking 50 points and it's 49, right? So
yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that that's me being doubtful of the more surefire thing
right.
of just. I think we could, yeah. I mean, we could get 42-35. We could get something crazy.
Some old
Um,
school AFC. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it. Like, I would love a shootout. Like, at the very
Yeah.
least, if we're going to lose this game, I would love to at least have the most exciting game of the weekend, or at least see the offense. That's the thing is, if you lose this game, it's not the end of the world. It does make next week way crazier.
Big. Yeah.
But if the offense can go out there and ball, I'll live if they lose. If the
Yeah.
defense just gets tore up, but the offense is able to ball, I can live with that.
Yeah.
But that's the type of loss that I have to live with. If the offense lays an egg, then I'm going to be very worried about next week and kind of everything after that. So,
I'm going to pick the Jags until they give me a reason not to. Maybe
yeah,
that'll be next week, as early as
4-0,
next week.
baby.
But
First four, tough schedule. My butt.
going to
They're gonna
London
get.
undefeated.
Yeah, absolutely. 20-0. It's on its. We're on
Reverse
our
Beatles.
1 hour ways.
Taking London by storm.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
But
All
yeah,
right.
no, very excited. Very excited.
Good stuff, Ev. Look forward to talking about it in the aftermath. So we'll do that coming up here real soon. On Reier on YouTube, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, great time to do it right now. Hit that subscribe button for us. See that notification bell up there too that Ev's pointing to? Hit that. That way you're alerted to all of our content as it drops right here on Reier on YouTube. If you'd hit us with a like, we'd appreciate that as well. For Evan Reier, Travis Reier, thanking you once again for joining us right here on No Sleep Teal. And until next time, so long, everybody.